So without further ado, I would like Dr. Rawat Hammad to take over and start defining to us what artificial intelligence is all about in a knowledgeable manner rather than my haphazard description.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed. Thanks, Dr. Alam, for the invitation again. I think you've described the AI brilliantly, Dr. Mohammed, so there's no need to re-identify that. I'll start, I think, probably just to
You want to share a presentation with us?
make it short. Yeah, I'll start by sharing my presentation here. Okay, so that's, let me know when you see my presentation, please.
Yep.
Good. So thanks again for the invitation. So today we are covering part of the AI workshop. So we have a workshop for AI, data science and the new norm. Part one will be introduction to AI, machine learning and big data. And as you all know, this is a very extremely demanding and large topic that we cannot cover during 1 hour and a half or maybe less than that, because we are a little bit late on the program. So what I'm trying to do in this session, we will divide it into two parts. The first part, yeah, okay. I'll speak, and on behalf of Dr. Mohammed Bahja as well from Birmingham University, we'll speak about knowledge representation and the role of that in developing AI-related systems. And the second part, part B, Dr. Ahmed Daowd will be speaking about Industry 4.0. So it's all about AI, but we can't cover the whole AI spectrum, machine learning and big data in 1 hour approximately. So let me jump first to the part one outline. I'll speak about the knowledge. Why do we need knowledge for AI? And how can we represent that knowledge? And finally, we'll give you some hints on what we call ontology engineering, which is a very effective way to develop an AI-related systems. Okay, so let me start now, trying to put my timer as well, just to make sure that I'm not exceeding the time too much. So yeah, the discussion that we will kick off here, we all know that we have AI systems, okay? Before we know and talk about AI system, let's talk about we as a human, okay? Now, as a human, we make decisions based on what? Based on knowledge, definitely, based on our own experiences in this life. And how can we make decision? You have the information about X and Y and Z, but you can't make a decision based on that information. You need to have this information represented in your mind, okay? And then you need to have somehow rules, some wisdom, some kind of opinion about things that allows you to judge whether option A is better for you than option B. And then you can make the decision later on. So these are the things that we would like to cover in our short presentation. Now, ideally, if we have this session face-to-face, I wouldn't define ontology or knowledge and knowledge representation without kicking off a discussion with audience. What do you think is knowledge? What is knowledge representation from your point of view? Now, I don't know if we can manage this online due to the number of participants maybe, or the level of attendees. Not sure if we can do that, but I will try quickly to cover these things very quickly, just to avoid the time delay. So if I move to the next slide, I would say knowledge usually is understanding of a subject, okay? It can be represented or can be a concept, can be fact about any area. It can be relations between something, or it could be a mechanism for how things work in the real life. So if I would like to model university, we've listened to the university entrepreneurship university talk. So if I would like to talk about university, then concept university is programs, lecturers, students, materials, topics, and so on. So these are concepts. We have some facts like student studies modules, student enroll in a program, some of these kind of information. Now, relationship between these concepts are so important. So I know that students are enrolled in certain program. We need to know that, can student be enrolled in more than one program or not? Can student be registered in one module or not, or more? So something like this. So need to have the somehow relation between these kind of concepts, and also mechanism, how students go and study in the university through a process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are all knowledge that we need to codify in our system in order to be allowed to make decisions and make our systems more intelligent. Okay, so why knowledge? Is it related to AI? Yes, it's related to AI, definitely. The branch of computer science that studies, among other things, the nature of human knowledge, understanding, and mental skills that we have in AI. So this is part of the AI, of course, and this is related to the knowledge and knowledge representation. The goal of AI, of course, is to develop programs that work as a human, okay, and what we call them intelligent software system or intelligent behavior. Let me just again move this, shift it here. Okay, and again, in order to do that, we need to have a representation for the knowledge that we have in the computer so we can move forward and make decisions. So let's move to the next slide. Knowledge need to be stored somewhere, obviously. And of course, most importantly, need to be retrieved. So if I know that Daowd is a computer science student, but I can't store that kind of information in the machine, then there will be no advantage for that, okay? So I need to store the knowledge and I need to retrieve the knowledge when I need it, okay? So I need to find the knowledge whenever I need in order to make sure that I can access it and provide the benefit out of that. And also I need to make reasoning about the knowledge. What is reasoning? Reasoning means that we need to use the knowledge that we have. Another strategy is also all the strategies that we have programmed in our systems to solve the problems, to make somehow some recommendations in order to make decisions or conclusions. So I know that Daowd has a very good understanding for AI concept. He has finished his first degree in computer science. He has some interest in field number 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I can recommend to him in an intelligent way that there are some programs in AI in the area that you are living that you can go for and study and develop your skills. Furthermore, if I know more information about Daowd, then I'll be able to provide him with more clever recommendations. So let's say if Daowd has interest in smart cities, which can be part of AI related application, and I know among the 10 universities that we have, and they offer AI related courses, there are 2 universities who have very good relationship with industry in smart city. Sorry, let me just, sorry, yeah. And we have 2 universities only among the 10. The 2 universities have very good relationship with industry in the smart city field. So I will definitely recommend the 2 universities instead of the 10. So the more information I know about Daowd, the more information I know about the users, the more knowledge I have, the clever structure I have, the more intelligent my system will be, okay? So let's quickly move to the more important cues here. So the process, if I would like to retrieve a knowledge, if I would like to gather a knowledge, if I would like to organize the knowledge, that's all a very huge kind of domain in AI, okay? So we can't again speak about all of that. We'll cover only part of knowledge representation. So knowledge representation can have a lot of definitions. I'll go by quick definitions here and speak about the role. Here I'm speaking about the role of knowledge representation. Okay, knowledge representation is most fundamentally a substitute for the knowledge itself, for the thing. Okay, why? Because we need to have this kind of information about ourselves in the machine. Okay, so if I told you now there is a book, you haven't seen a book before, let's say this is the assumption, there is a book somewhere, and then I try to give you some description for that book. The book is a small design, okay, its dimension is 10 centimeters by 12 centimeters, okay, the book has 400 pages, the book color is yellow, and then these pages are numbered. So you haven't seen the book by itself, but now you gain some information about that thing, about that object, about the book itself. And you can describe it, you can answer some of the question if you've been asked about it. So this is somehow the role of the knowledge representation. Again, knowledge representation here is a set of ontological commitment. Now, the word ontology comes from philosophy initially, so it's not like AI-related terms initially. So it's coming from philosophy to understand things and relations between them. Now, we use that term ontology in AI in order to describe things as facts and as a relationship between them, okay? So ontology can be represented as, or can be defined as, an explicit representation of the fact that we have, or the things that we have. Okay, so we can say this is ontology, or knowledge representation is, sorry, knowledge representation is a set of ontological commitments that answer the question that we have. Okay, again, another definition for knowledge representation is a fragmented theory about intelligent reasoning. So if I know that I will be answering a question about concept A or B or C, then I should know more information about them, and I should have a level of inference. Okay, inference means I can make decision about things that are not in front of me. So I know Rawad is a student in computer science. He finished his first degree. He also did his MSc, let's say, at the moment, all in AI. Then my assumption, based on his history, that he will be interested in doing further study to go for PhD level. And that's why I can make an inference here to say, yes, Rawad will go for PhD, and I would recommend a related domain for him. Okay. Again, what we can see in Amazon, for example, when Amazon shows you a lot of products, Amazon did not know that you already you want to buy, for example, a fridge, but Amazon knows that from your behavior, previous behavior, you bought similar products, and also you want to buy something like this. So he, as Amazon system, can recommend to you somehow a similar product. Okay, now in Amazon, that is not very intelligent, but because it depends on your history of purchases, but AI techniques can make that hugely different, significantly different. Okay, the fourth slide here about knowledge is a kind of medium for pragmatically efficient computational way of thinking. Okay, so again, it's about recommendation. I talked yesterday about recommending resources for students. So if I know a student will study mathematic topic, like, for example, solving equations from first degree, then I know that they will be looking for resources. So I look for the resources that is available for student X, and I recommend that learning resources for him. I would recommend different resources for different students to study the same lesson. Why? Because that student is learning by different approach. He has some kind of misconception or missing conception. Okay, so that's the kind of recommender inferences that we are trying to cover here. Finally, last slide about knowledge representation. It's a medium for human expression, and it's very important for us to talk with computers in a common language. Now, if I speak English, you speak French, we can't understand each other. We need a medium between both of us. If we have the best knowledge and we can't talk to each other, then there will be no opportunity to learn from that. What we are trying to do in cognitive computing and neuroscience probably is try to structure a way that we and computer can learn from each other. And this is one of the hope that we are trying to find in the next future, probably a couple of decades or something. So knowledge representation versus knowledge reasoning. Again, knowledge reasoning mostly is about problem solving strategies. Okay, so I don't provide the program with what or know what. We have two kind of things there, know what and know how. Okay, so I don't, in normal programming, if I would like, for example, to program using Java programming language, a calculator, I type the rule for the program, how to action things, how to perform the task that it will be given to the program. In the AI related programming, this is different. We don't give the program the way how to behave. We give them we don't give them the way that how to structure. We just give the program the final result and what should be. And then we give the program the strategy in order to solve the problem. And based on the input, the program will structure the solution and will present the solution. Okay. So in our case, in our scenario, we have problem solving strategies. That problem solving strategy will be valid for Rawad, for Muhammad, for Ali, for everyone else, okay, with different inputs, okay? And that's what we're trying to do here. Now, this is a bit different probably from data science, from machine learning, but this is valid at the moment in knowledge representation. So for the knowledge, I need to represent what I know, what I don't know, and what I'm not sure about. So if I know that Rawad is a student in computer science, I can recommend him some courses. What is the need to know why Rawad? What is the need if I would like to say, I don't know what Rawad is studying, no, that's very important as well. Why? Because if I don't know what is he studying, what he's doing, then I can't recommend to him something like this. I need to look for further information. Okay. Another thing that I would like to talk about here, if I'm not sure about something, okay, then I should be also explicitly saying that. Why? If I'm not sure about something, then I can make a recommendation with some certainty factors that we can talk about them later on. So one example here, if it's raining and Jane does not have her umbrella, then she will get wet. So this is a recommendation, or this is a conclusion or inference that we do here. Now, the more information I have about raining, is it heavily raining or just shower, that will make my decision more accurate, okay? The more information about the umbrella that Jane will have will also make my decision more accurate. So if the umbrella is just a small one that we tend to use in our bag when we go to university, that will be not very suitable for the heavy raining. But if it's a very big umbrella, then that will be also something good. Now, types of knowledge are very important things. We are a very complex creature. We are human, very complex creature. We can't have all of our knowledge represented in a computer system. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can see the top word here. The first type of knowledge, procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge like strategies, agendas, procedures you need to do, and so on. So when you go, for example, to any meeting, you have an agenda in front of you and in front of everyone. So we'll cover the topic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or if you would like to do an experiment, then you have a procedure. These are procedural knowledge. There are some procedures between it. There are other types of knowledge, declarative knowledge, where you're talking about concepts, you're talking about facts, you're talking about objects, describing them, okay? And this kind of knowledge is more appropriate for our daily life and the human intelligence that we have. The third part of the knowledge is the meta knowledge. Meta knowledge is a kind of higher level of knowledge, can make kind of abstraction, okay? And again, there are many other types of knowledge here: heuristic knowledge, structural knowledge, index, uncertain knowledge, common sense, and so on. We can't cover all of that, but this slide just to show you that we have a very complex way as a human creature to codify the knowledge inside our mind and inside our brain. And what we need to do here is just to try to mimic the human ways of doing things in computer. Now, we can't efficiently do all of that, but we can cover part of it. So let's move to the next slide and see what we can do. So for example, knowledge type, here is the procedural knowledge, for example. It provides you with how to do something, for example, how to determine if Chris and Maria is older, okay? Now this probably very easy, find their ages. So if Maria is 6 years old, Chris is 7 years old, then Chris is older, okay? Again, in procedural knowledge, we focus on tasks that must be performed in a particular way to achieve a particular objective or goal. So I care about how to wash a specific cup in order to get it clean. So this is a task that I need to perform, okay? Again, this can be conveyed to the user using procedures, rules, and so on. Declarative knowledge is knowledge about something that is true or false, or a description of something. It's a fact, like this car has 4 tires. Maria is older than Chris. This house is a very old house, it's a Victorian house, and so on. So it refers to a representation of an object or event or knowledge about facts and relationship between these kind of things, okay? And under this kind of knowledge, you will have concepts, facts, object, preposition, assertion, semantic net, a lot of types of the knowledge that you can represent in the computer in order to describe what you'd like to describe. So if you can see in this slide, the key takeaway from this slide is do not look at our mind as human and all the knowledge in our mind in just only in one way. There are multiple types of knowledge types. There are multiple types of ways that we need to use in order to store our knowledge and how to deal with the knowledge, okay? In order to organize it, structure it, retrieve it, and use it whenever needed. So knowledge representation technique in computers, we have various ways to do that. We have object attribute value triples, so we can use that kind of simple way of organizing knowledge. We have also uncertain facts, because not all things that we know, we are certain about it. We have fuzzy facts. Fuzzy fact also is a kind of uncertainty, but with severe uncertainty, I would call it. We have rules that will never change. For example, if you study, then you will success, you will pass the exam. And of course, there is some uncertainty in this, but there are some rules without uncertainty as well. We have semantic networks to present complex structure, and also we have frames, which is another complex concept that we might talk about if we have some time. So let's move here just to make sure that we are covering things in the very basic level. So we talked about object attribute value, okay? Now, we make sure that whatever information we have about X, there is no single way to represent it in the computer. You can represent it in many, many ways, okay? Now, this depends on you. So there is an element of subjectivity here when we design AI system. Okay, one way of doing this is object attribute value. So let's say I would like to describe a ball, then I can say the ball is the object here, okay, which I'm referring to. And again, yellow is the color, and the relationship between the ball and yellow is color, okay? Now you can replace this object attribute value, and again, I'm saying this is the object, ball is the object, color is the attribute, yellow is the value. You can replace it with any kind of relation or topic. For example, student is the object, studies is the attribute, and then yellow, we will replace it with, for example, artificial intelligence module or computer science program, something like that. So why do we need to represent this kind of information? If I know this student studies this kind of programs, then I can recommend further resources to him. I can recommend communities to him, so he can join these communities and learn and apply the knowledge he learned at the universities. Okay, and we need to know that in a machine way, in an automatic way, without going back and asking him about what information you have, what interest you have, and so on. Okay, so you can represent a large number of knowledge, information here, and attributes using this simple and basic structure of knowledge representation. We tend to use this in many ways, even in XML file, in RDF files also as well. These are all similar techniques. Now move to next one, technique number 2. What if I have uncertainty in my representation? So for example, I know this river is long, okay, but I'm not sure to what extent this is a long river. So I know this river length long, but the certainty factor here is 0.5, okay? So there is a possibility when I make a decision that there is a possibility that my decision might be right or might be wrong based on this certainty factor, okay? If you go back again to the example about raining and Jane, if I know that it's raining now, okay, weather raining at the moment, okay, and the certainty factor of that is 0.8, then the marginal or margins for my error could be 0.2 because I know it's raining. Now, if I know also more about the rain by itself, the rain drop size is, let's say, 0.3. So then I can classify this is not a very heavy raining. It's somehow heavy raining, but it's not that heavy. If I have more information about rain, and of course drop size, and the drop size is let's say 1 centimeter, it's obviously very heavy, then I'll say that will be a very heavy raining. Okay, you can have the certainty factor if you are not certain, but if you are certain, then you can ignore that uncertainty. Next technique, if we have fuzzy fact, this is a complex way of modeling knowledge. You could have somehow an information about a person, okay, and you could look at the membership value. Membership value is a somehow more complicated way of modeling our uncertainty if we compare it to the certainty factor. So you know the age, and you have young or middle age or old, okay? And instead of having a very specific number, 0.5, 0.3, you need to have more accurate number ranging from 1, for example, to 0, okay? And depending on the age. So if my age at this moment is, let's say, 38, then I would not need to look at this from the perspective of having this kind of membership value, okay? So instead of giving yourself a certainty factor, then you're talking about more complex representation. Now, obviously, this is a very, very simplified example of the fuzzy fact, but the more fuzziness that we have in our system, the more accurate we will be in modeling our knowledge as a human. Now, let me explain this again. If you go back to your mind and investigate the majority of what you have, the majority of knowledge you have in your mind, you'll find a large number of this knowledge is not 100% fact, not 100% true all the time. So you know the weather is good in summer because you can go for a picnic, for example, or you can go to the park, but that's not always true. It depends again on the summer. It might be extra hot, it might be extremely boiling, and then you can't go outside, okay? Or it might be different from one place to another. So there will be always, or not always, most of the time, there will be uncertainty, okay, in many, many scenarios. And now uncertainty cannot be just only 0.5, 0.8, 0.9. There are more complex ways to do it. And that's what we call fuzzy logic. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'll move to the rule. Okay, rules are very complex way to model our knowledge. One of it, of its formula is the if then rule. Okay, if the time now, if I'm just looking at this, if the time is after midnight, okay, and I'm hungry, then I shouldn't eat now. This is, for example, one of the rules. So you need to have if and then at the end of the statement. And then you apply this to any certain instant. When I say instant, is an individual, is a person. So if Rawad is hungry at the moment, and the time is after midnight, then Rawad should not eat now. And again, this kind of knowledge is a domain specific. So for example, for someone, he would say if the time is after midnight and I'm hungry, then I should eat or I can eat. But if the time is after 2 a.m. and I'm hungry, then I should not eat now. So the knowledge is dependent here in this way. So the knowledge depends on the domain that we are using, depends on the people who are working, depends on the software that we are trying to develop. Nothing wrong or nothing right. You just need to develop a knowledge base to codify the knowledge about certain domain that will work for certain people or certain software system. Going back to real life example, if we have, for example, banking system, okay, and you would like to do somehow rules to look at the, for example, the what we call financial crimes, for example, or other kind of stuff. So let me just say in the chat, I guess I have some, okay, 9 to go, okay, that's fine, thank you. So if I need to, for example, to codify that kind of knowledge, then I'll go for the domain of banking and then try to see how they look at these kind of rules. Let's move to the next slide now, okay? Another way to model this, for example, if the time is after midnight, and again, I have some certainty factor here because I don't know the time now, and I'm hungry, there is no certainty factor because I know that if I'm hungry or not, then I shouldn't eat now. And look at the certainty factor of the decision is minus 0.5 because your decision is not 100% sure. You're not sure about your 100%. Again, if the meal is hot, then I shouldn't eat before a certain point. Let's move to the next slide talking about semantic network. It's a complex relationship between objects. So I know, again, going back to the simplified example, I know Rawad is a student and he studies a module, then I can recommend certain things. Why do I need to go back to the same model? if we are talking about online learning now, and I know AI module is structured as 10 lessons, okay? Lesson number 5 it depends on lesson number 4, okay? So if Rawad studied lesson number 4, did the quiz for that lesson, and he succeeded, he passed that quiz, then he is definitely going to go to, or he's eligible to go to study lesson number 5. If he did not pass lesson number 4 quiz, then he should not be allowed to access lesson number 5 because he will not be able to understand the topic. So the more information I provide about the lessons, okay, about the learning outcomes, learning goals, and so on, will be more useful for the system to make these kind of knowledge and decisions more accurate. Okay, here is a semantic network that we have about a dog, for example, and we can know that the dog, okay, has legs, okay, and the number of legs are, or the number is 4. Okay, so this is a kind of knowledge representation. So you have an object, dog has leg, okay, so this is attribute value, okay, and then you have another relationship between leg and 4, leg number of 4, okay. Now you need to have a dog, and there are 3 different types of the dog. It could be bulldog, setters, and it could be labradors, okay. And you have Billy as an instant, as an individual. So Billy is one of the dog that you have, okay. And of course you could have 10 or 20. Now if you have different types of dog, then the food that you need to recommend for these dogs are different, for example, or you can't take them for a workout all at the same time or in the same way, okay, or you can't keep them at the same place, and so on. So these kind of things you need to look in when you have the information. I would like to provide an exercise here for discussion, but I think we don't have the proper time, so I would love to have somehow reflection on the procedural knowledge, declarative knowledge, meta knowledge that we have as human, but this probably is something that you can do when you when we finish the lecture on your own time. So let's move on to the next way. So knowledge representation languages. Again, we've been talking about knowledge representation in a very abstract way. This is a central component for AI systems. How can we model knowledge representation? Okay, there are many languages to do that, and this all depends on the topic that we have, depends on the knowledge that we have. The overall goal is to reach what we call intelligent systems. Okay, in order to reach that intelligent system, I need to look at the time, processes, actions, event, entities that I have in my own system, in my own domain, and come up with a proper decision which language I be using. Okay, so for example, if I would like to talk about logic-based representation languages like propositional logic, okay, then I would say for something like this, A and B will lead to C, okay? And you will have an example. If the princess is in the palace and the king is in the garden, then the king cannot see the princess. So this is a decision that you make, or this is an inference that you have at the moment. Why? Because they are sitting in 2 different places, and then the decision is they can't, or the inference, they can't see each other. Why? Because the way that we know about the palace and the garden is anyone who's sitting in the garden cannot see the palace or cannot see who's inside the palace. But there might be a scenario that someone who's sitting in the palace can see anyone in the garden, or vice versa. So you model these kind of things based on your own awareness of the domain. If you know that anyone in the garden can see someone in the palace or vice versa, then you can say, no, the decision that king can see the princess, okay? So it's your role as an ontology engineer to develop that and put these kind of rules in the proper way. Again, knowledge representation language, you could use first order predicate calculus, okay, where you have universal quantifier or existential quantifiers. So there will be a student, for example, if a student is a male or female and has registered a module, then you can certainly recommend some more characteristics or feature for that students, okay? there are some examples there as well about the use of predicate calculus. So if a mother is a woman, if a mother would like to be described, as you described, mother is a woman, and that mother should have a child, okay? And the child need to be person, okay? Father should be a man, and at the same time, he has a child as well. And the parent should be mother or father, okay? Now, grandmother need to be defined in a way that is a mother, and she has a child, but the child is parent, not a person, okay? And you can describe more relationship, for example, mother with many children is the mother with, and she's a mother, and she has 3 children or more. Now, this could be different. Maybe one of the families said, mother with many children is more than 2 or more than 1, okay? So that's only a subjective way of codifying knowledge. Again, knowledge representation language, we could talk about rules. We have Swirl, NAI, which is semantic web rule language, okay? Again, these are all complex AI related techniques. So what I'm trying to do here is just talking about ontology because this is a simplified way of doing things. Again, ontology came from Greek ontos, the word of being, okay? So philosophy, it refers to the subject of existence, but then now we have to use this in AI to describe things in a more clever way. So I would just like to pause here and ask the moderator how much time I still have before I continue.
You have 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. So, okay, so let me wrap up then. So the ontology, if we go for the ontology, more detailed description here can be found. And I think the presentation will be shared with all of you. So it's an extremely good way to use an AI. I've done it to develop AI related system for education. And for example, we can describe a model or a domain in this way. So you can, you know that the musician plays using a certain instrument, and he or she plays at the events, and also people who would like to attend this event. Also, musicians record albums. Okay, you can model a very huge domain using this kind of things. Let me just show you very quickly. These are 3 huge ontologies. Gene ontologies talk about biology and the relation between genes and our bodies, and there are huge attempts there to build ontologies for gene. You can look at this link later on and see the gene ontology. Look at the structure to see how complex this ontology is, okay, and how the relationship can be really useful to understand the domain. Next slide. Okay, I'll skip this one, okay, because this is quite technical one. Okay, now this is a practical session. I think you can do it within on your own if you would like to learn more about the concept. There is a very useful ontology guideline called Ontology 101. Okay, so that Ontology 101 is a huge is a very good example to start with. So you can explain ontology engineering methodology and evaluate your ontology based on the concept that you would like to learn. So here is the point to consider, and this is the basic element of ontology. You need to have classes, you need to have properties, and then you need to have restriction or relationship between them. And this is the methodology that I would like you to follow if you'd like to understand more about this topic. At the end of this slide, you need just, for example, this topic, you determine the scope of your ontology and the domain. I would like to do ontology related, ontology related on the, sorry, I would like to develop an ontology about biology, okay? The scope, I can't cover all the biology in one ontology. So for example, we talk about gene ontology, and then we consider reusing other ontology if there are ontology, and there will be ontologies, okay? Then you enumerate the important terms in your ontology, define them, list them, link them with each other, and then define the classes and the hierarchy, okay? And then define the properties, and finally define the facet of the slot, the values. And look at this in a more holistic way, and you will see something like this. Siemens as a company produces computers, okay? Siemens is the domain, and the slot is produces, and the range is computers. Also student studies a course, and so on. Okay, now you create more instances. You describe Rawad as a student, Muhammad as the lecturer, Alam is the leader for the course, and so on. Here is the Ontology 101 guidance. You can click on that and you can practice this on your time if you have the willing to learn more about ontology. If you have more questions, I will be happy to answer. And I'll leave you now with the module, with the facilitator, just to allow a little bit of question and answer, and then we move to the second part of this workshop. Thanks, Mohammed. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Rawad. Very interesting to expose us to ontology engineering. It's a new concept to all of us. I'm sure most of us are familiar with the concept of knowledge management and explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge, but to then bring in the knowledge in terms of representation and reasoning, and then break the knowledge in terms of the concepts and the relationships between them, and the ability to store and access the data and reason the data, you build up a good momentum or a good fundamental for us to actually define knowledge itself in a more in-depth. And you brought in the elements of the reasoning and the representation in a very good, concise manner. There's a question here from Professor Joseph. Can you provide more information on frames? Are they similar to schemes? Dr. Rawad?
Yeah, sorry. I'll
Yeah.
stop sharing now. Yeah, so the themes, frame is a little bit more complex in terms of codifying the, let's say the uncertainty and where we structure the knowledge. Okay, so if I would go for simplified ways of codifying, let's say, relationship between objects, Rawad studying let's say modules or a program, then that's true for certain scenarios. But now, what if I would like to make more complicated decision that is not just only dependent on what Rawad is doing at the moment or what Rawad is studying? I need to make decisions that is related to his previous situation, for example, or the way he would like to interact with other colleagues and so on. So I need to use a different data structure, which is AI data structure, that divide knowledge into substructure to represent somehow stereotyped situations. Okay, this was invented, I guess, in 1970s at some point. So again, frame is an intelligent, let's say, data structure, an AI. Okay, they use also ontology set, but they have very specific representation and reasoning schemas. Okay, and I can go back, I guess, to the the book of AI, a modern approach, which I'm teaching my student at the moment in the university. We tend to teach frames as the last complex object for the last complex concept for the student, because it talks about what we call semantic network and semantic calculus. Okay, and I'm sure we can talk about this more if you want, but this is I think we need to simplify things like linked data before and how this can be built on that. So hopefully I've answered the questions.
Thank you very much for that. It's given us food for thought so far. Yeah, I'm on. It's given us food for thought in terms of now we know what knowledge is in a more depth understanding. We understand some elements of the analytical situation between the representation and the reasoning elements of it. And you've just given us a quick, brief introduction to the frames and the schemes and the relationships between them. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to move to Dr. Hammad Daowd, who will take us more into the data sciences. Dr. Hammad Daowd comes from Coventry University Business School. He uses he's published a lot of paper in these areas and into the data sciences, how people use social medias and other things like that. And I'm sure he's going to take the knowledge management aspects that were presented by Dr. Rawad and help us move forward in our understanding of these systems. So Ahmed, without any further ado, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for this brief introduction. Thank you for you all guys for having me. It's a great honor to be with you all today. Actually, my presentation will be a continuation of what Rawad started, but from business perspective. So I will introduce some like something I can consider it a bit recent and new, which is the term Industry 4.
Yeah.
So I will be speaking about Industry 4, the story and the application. Because of the time limit, I will try to be a bit short, way shorter than Rawad at least. So yeah, I'm Ahmed Daowd. I work at Coventry Business School as a lecturer in business analytics. So because it's a e-conference of it's e-meeting, I mean, face to face, when you go to class or when you go to conference face to face, you see people, you give a smile, you shake hands. Unfortunately, we can't do this one in Corona time. So I tried for online teaching. I always try to start with my students with something positive, break the ice, especially at the first time. So with you guys, I decided to start with a very positive perspective of my daughters, how she see our planet. So she see it as stuffed with love. My daughter is Tia, and she's 9 years old. So yeah, this is some positive ideas to start with. The content of my presentation, first I will be introducing the concept of Industry 4, definition, key terms and benefits, the impact of Industry 4 on traditional working structure, and the objectives will be understanding how Industry 4 developed or evolved, to examine how Industry 4 works, and explain Industry 4 key terms, and address Industry 4 impact and potentials. So, introduction on this, in old age, once upon a time, the role of technology leadership was to keep the lights on. That's all they used to do in old ages. Now, they must be aware of all latest tools and technologies, decide which will best advance their organizational goals to be able to compete, sustain, and move forward. So what we mean by Industry 4 as one of the tools, recent tools to be used in manufacturing. It's the term referred to to or describe the networking and the continuous real-time communication of man, machine, product, process, and environment. So if you look at Industry 4 from a pragmatic approach, and from a historical perspective, let's see if we can put those 4 pictures in order as a simple test. So we have four pictures, starting with picture A, presenting electric powered assembly line and mass production. Picture B, cyber physical system, Internet of Things, smart technologies. Picture C, present automation, computers and electronics. And picture D, present mechanical production and water and steam production. If you want, you can share your views in the chat box, or should we, from the newest to the oldest?
I'll have a go as the moderator. I think we started off with D, and then we went on to A, and then C, and then B, because initially we had an industrial revolution that built on the electrical knowledge that we automated, and now we're moving into the Internet of Things and the cyber and the machines. The robots are taking over, basically.
Exactly. And this is what we call it Industry 4. So in 1784, we started with Industry 1, where we have mechanical production, water and steam production. And this is what we called it, at the beginning of Industrial Revolution. And 100 years later, if you look at the gap between each progress, Industry 1 and Industry 2, it's almost 100 years, 1 century. Industry 2, where we started having electric powered machines, moving another 100 years almost, having Industry 4 in 1969, where we have automation, computers and electronic production or manufacturing. Now you see the gap, it's within less than 40 years, we have Industry 4. So the development of technology is getting faster and faster. Industry 4, when we talk about cyber physical system, Internet of Things, smart technologies, production. So Industry 1, 2, 3, and Industry 4, which the one we live in now. Now, how will machine communicate? Machine can communicate with each other through what we call, now just identifying or discussing the terms. If you heard the word Internet of Things, people unexpected in this field, they may ask what we mean by Internet of Things. Internet of Things is simply when two machines communicate. And we have Internet of People, or Internet of Human, they call it in computer science. In business, we call it Internet of People, where this is when people and machine communicate. So we have Internet of Things when machine to machine communicate, and Internet of People or human when a machine and human communicate. So machine can communicate with each other and with the manufacturers to create what we can call a cyber physical production system, CPPS. All of this will help to integrate the real world into a virtual one and enable machines to collect live data, which is the most important things now. Collect real-time information. You have a lorry broken down in Scotland, and your head office in London, and you need to know how they operate, if there's any issue, if there's any breakdown. So in your central system, they get straight information that one lorry gets broken down in Scotland. So they react so quickly, instead of the lorry to wait and call and get in touch with the specialized team. Straight away, the specialized team get information that the lorry, or not even broken down. This lorry may break down because of the pressure on the tires, because of any mechanical issue. When the machine communicates, they can even give you hints in advance to know if this lorry could break down within 2, 3, 4 hours or 2, 3 days. So you are ready and prepared for this scenario. So then you can make a decision based on this real-time information. So key terms of Industry 4, smart sensors. This comes with machines, for example, or with vehicles. Internet of Things, we spoke about machine-to-machine communication. Big data analytics, when we have a system or we have tools to collect the data and analyze it straight away, and this presented for decision maker to take a decision. Artificial intelligence and cyber. So how can Industry 4 improve traditional working structure? So first of all, enhancing visibility of customers needs the market segment to provide accurate, high quality, personalized product and service. Adoption of smart data analytics allow additional high margin revenue when customized products usually generate significantly higher margin than mass manufacturers ones. Example of this: if you want to go and buy a car online, a new car, you do not have to have features you will not be using. Example, if you want to go to Mercedes and buy a car from Mercedes, and you don't think and you will not maybe use pilot parking. I used to have Mercedes which has a pilot parking, but I did not use it at all. It's a feature may cost me £2,000-3,000 extra, and may cost the manufacturer a lot of work and effort, and even will cost materials and money. If I don't need it, they don't have to build it. I can go online and build my own car based on my own criteria, so I can customize based on my preferences. Okay, so they will be able to deliver personalized solutions for final users according to their requirement, as it's made by real-time data availability. Industry 4 offers a great opportunity, as I mentioned, for quality management in case of any failure. Sensor immediately notify the issue that the responsible team or person, as I mentioned with the example of lorry broken down, so we can take straight reaction. Now, increasing the number of smart devices in the factory and the efficiency of the communication among them are favoring global planet optimization that results in increase of the industrial productivity. So I don't have to waste materials for a pilot parking if I don't need it, if I'm not going to use it. This will also help the environment in a way. Because of improved automation, a lot of jobs will disappear. And this is a bit scary for most of the people. When we talk about robots taking places in our factories, and even in our businesses, people are scared. But I think from my own perspective and from my own observation, many jobs will be created as per to the this industrial era or Industry 4 revolution. Now, example of this, we have Volkswagen Industrial Cloud. So Volkswagen implemented or enabled a smart real-time control. They implemented what we call it Volkswagen Industrial Cloud. They implemented it in their manufacturing, and they started collecting real-time information, which bring together data from all machines, plants, or even branches all around the world, and systems in all their factories. This enabled Volkswagen or VW to analyze the process even much better and faster, and those to become more productive. The goal was to integrate the global supply chain for more than 30,000 locations and 1,500 partner companies into Volkswagen Industrial Cloud. So everyone involved in Volkswagen manufacturing process, distribution process, supply chain operation, they all are connected to one cloud, and they automatically provide real-time information about businesses, about numbers, about performance, and this will help much better to improve the process and the communication. So, for example, if a truck is about to get stuck in a traffic jam, a component is faulty, or a machine break down, as I mentioned, everyone involved knows immediately as information is shared straight away on the cloud. So the benefit of Industry 4, just briefly, it's to provide continuous and timely communication between intelligent objects by themselves and people. It will give flexible production. It will give cost reduction. It will help improving productivity and active preventive maintenance. Active preventive maintenance, when you have a sensor which can tell you that any part of machines or vehicle will be shortly shortly break down, so you are aware, you can replace it or you can take action in advance, so you don't have to wait until you are in trouble. I have experience from one of my interviews. One of the big companies, airplane and luxurious car manufacturer, he was talking about the experience 10 years ago. There was a fault on one of the production line, and they did not notice this fault. They were producing cars on the car line production, and they were not aware of this fault, and the car produced with a fault. Even they were not discovered. This fault was not discovered until like maybe few months. They sold the car in use, and customers started complaining about the issue with the cars. So he was discussing, he's from IT department and that company, and he was discussing if at that time, 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, if we had a kind of sensors which is at least telling us that this part of the production line is faulty or there's an issue with it, we could have saved £1 million instead of calling the cars again to the manufacturing department and trying to fix the issue and putting our business in big trouble. So now you can have sensors which tell you that there's a fault could happen, or there's a fault already happened in certain department. So you are aware well in advance instead of waiting until the item is tested or consumed by customer and you are notified by customers about this issue. Monitoring it's also helpful for monitoring your production lines and to control and for optimization. Optimization is one of the most important things. You do not have to produce a product, especially when we talk about cars or big products. You do not have to produce a product with features will not be used. And real-time information sharing. Now, there's a video, 3 minutes video. It's just summarizing all what I discussed here. Let me try to open it from YouTube and we all watch it, if you don't mind. Can you hear it?
We can't see it. You need to share the screen.
Sorry?
You still have the PowerPoint on. We don't see the video. We just see your PowerPoint.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Let me share the screen instead of sharing the slides.
Yeah, you need to minimize the slide.
Yeah,
just do a new share.
New share, yeah.
Yeah, that will be easier. And click on share computer sound at the bottom.
Computer sound, share, yeah. Because in Coventry we use MS Teams most of the time. So yeah. Now should
have the chance to be part of it.
Just make it bigger.
This isn't going to be like before. The fourth industrial revolution has begun, and you have the chance to be part of it. This isn't going to be like before. It's not about the steam that powered our factories in the first revolution, or the mass production model that dominated the second, or even the emergence of computer-driven systems from the third revolution that we're living in today. Industry 4.0 is about connectivity. It's an opportunity to radically change the way industry responds to the needs of society. As previous industrial revolution led innovations in manufacturing processes and systems, the advancement of Industry 4.0 will be driven by a smart, interconnected, pervasive environment. The opportunities for disruption are huge, and those left behind will feel it acutely. There is still space for leaders of this new revolution to emerge, but the race has already started. Understanding what current leaders are doing will help you join them. KPMG formally examined what those trailblazers were doing in their factories and their offices, and it revealed some thought-provoking findings. Our research highlighted a number of areas that current Industry 4.0 leaders are focusing on. Leaders are planning ahead with clear strategic vision, driven by performance and tying investment to proven opportunities for growth, progress, and innovation. They are focused on discovering how smart products and processes can be developed. Integration is key. The major players are moving away from isolated silo-driven development, which limits scope and value of new projects. Instead, they are moving towards large-scale and proactive integration across their enterprise and among their customers' supply base and products, to ensure they are aware of every possible opportunity Industry 4.0 technology has to offer. Perhaps most importantly, they are not afraid to think big and act bold. This means nurturing innovation, developing disruptive thought processes aimed at devastating the status quo, and looking for opportunity in every element of their value chain, from which products are designed and how they are produced, to who they are sold to, how they are purchased. Your organization may be radically different in the future, with a range of products, services, and processes you can't currently predict. Want to join the leaders of Industry 4.0? Can you afford not to? Then our advice is plan ahead. Fight radical change with integrated radical action. And embrace the fact that it's time for manufacturers to step up and start making smart, bold moves. If you don't, you could be left behind. You have this chance. Let us help you take it.
So yeah, that's all from me. I want to conclude with asking you to open the discussion. What's your expectation, or what's your view about the challenges of Industry 4.0? Thank you so much for listening, and I will leave it to you now, guys.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Just to recap, Dr. Rawad gave us a brief introduction about the ontology engineering aspect, which is all to do with the knowledge acquisition and knowledge understanding and comprehension and how we process it. And Dr. Ahmed here took us to Industry 4.0, which is more of an application where you've highlighted some significant improvements in our society. So you started talking about the network of things and how things are going to interact, the machinery. And this links in with the heart of artificial intelligence, because we said at the beginning, it's a part of computer science where we develop intelligent machines, and we have been developing them over a 4-generation period. We're in generation 3 now, where we looked at reactive machines in terms of giving them some data, some knowledge, like Dr. Rawad said, and we interpret that knowledge. And now we moved on to the limited memory machinery, where we started communicating in terms of self-driving vehicles and other things like that. And now we're moving more into that social robotic element of things, where we're creating a theory of mind, as the psychologists refer to it. And I think this is where your concept of the Internet of Things and the Internet of People sit, because we are moving away from just a machine that does a function as it was given to us by Dr. Rawad, to a machine that can communicate with another machine to form a culture, a group of cars behaving together, reacting to each other. And the next stage, or generation 4 after Industry 4, is going to be Industry 5, where the machines actually are autonomous. They're going to start taking the decisions, or self-aware of themselves. And we're nowhere near that yet, because we still wait for G5 and other things like that to help the transfer of the knowledge. But if we take a bigger picture before we move on to the next speaker, Dr. Rabi, this is all tied in with what Deming said. In God we trust, but all others need to bring data, and we need to understand the data, we need to quantify the data, we need to learn from the data. And I think this is where artificial intelligence comes into it, because its ability to communicate and process and analyze and synthesize is beyond our comprehension. And this is clear from Industry 4, how the new phase of civilization is going to be. We're moving on from the Industrial Revolution to the knowledge revolution, and now we're going beyond it to the application of knowledge, basically, and the processing of knowledge. And it ties in with what Mathis said earlier on in the 19th century about resources being limited, but human populations are expanding, and there's a deficit element there. But through the Industry 4, through the knowledge management, through artificial intelligence, we have developed what this group has been trying to do, a sustainable future in terms of utilizing the resources in the smartest manner. And I think this is where your slide just before the video came into it, where you listed to us how Industry 4 is going to be on-time communication. It's very flexible, it's monitoring, there's productivity, it's big things being applied with minimum cost and minimum resources. And we should not fear this, because although the landscape is changing for us, it's creating new jobs as old jobs will disappear. And this is apparent in all our civilization. I mean, a few years ago, if you told me I'll be having a conference in this manner, I wouldn't have believed you. And nowadays, you know, I'm talking to people from around the world here. So what I'm saying here is a conclusion of what we said is we presented the knowledge and we presented an application of how this knowledge could be featured. And I think I have a question here from Dr. Amin, who says, Dr. Ahmed, can you employ knowledge management to the Internet of Things? Can you provide an example for that?
Employ knowledge to Internet of Things. I mean, if we say knowledge is information about certain scenario, yes, it is actually already employed. When machine communicate with a human, when we talk about Internet of Things, or a machine talk to a machine, Internet of People, our machine communicate with machine, Internet of Things. Yes, it's communicated. The communication is based on knowledge, based on information. So if the target for certain manufacturer to produce 100,000 items, okay, so and the share for two machines, let's say, I'll make it simple, for two machines to make 500,000 item, okay, for certain reason one machine was a bit faster, I mean, without discussing the reason, one machine was faster and it was able to reach the 500,000. Other machine has only produced 400,000. We have 100,000 to be produced to achieve the target or to reach the target. This could be automatically. We don't need to get involved. Those two machines automatically they know that the target is I said 1 million, half million each. Let's say one of them finished the share. So automatically can keep producing until the target is achieved on both machines. So you see, when they communicate, they inform each other about their performance also. Okay, so they achieve the target. This is a very simple example of how we could use knowledge. But there are more complicated, and from my observation on as I mentioned, I had practical knowledge when I went to one of the car and airplane manufacturer, how they employ, and they are still, what they claim, they are still behind in terms of implementing Industry 4 or even understanding the term Industry 4 or big data analytics. But yes, it is already implemented and it's already used.
Thank you very much. There's a few more questions trickling around, but can I ask everyone to put their cameras on, because the World Association wants to take a group picture as we normally do in a real conference, but we're going to do it virtually here. And well, there's a lot of questions, but I just wanted to ask one last question from, again, Dr. Amir, who's asking Dr. Ahmed about the network benefits and how, because the network benefits be leveraged in terms of network for Industry 4.
What exactly you mean by network benefit? Can you explain?
I think he's talking about the limitation of the network, or how can you optimize the network to actually apply the knowledge management system in the Internet of People and the Internet of Things.
Dr. Rawad, can you handle this, because it's more into knowledge management, or it's more technical, I think?
Yeah, of course, but if you can repeat the question, please, Mohammed, please.
It's on the discussion. It's about how do we leverage the network benefits in relationship to the Internet of Things and knowledge management.
I guess, yeah, the more important thing here is to get the more realistic data from our network, if I understand the question properly. And again, any kind of representation for the knowledge need to understand the nature of data. So if it's just simple structure for the networks, bandwidth, the connectivity, and so on, that will be easily or fairly easy to model that presentation. Now, unfortunately, that's not true in most of our scenarios, because we have a huge complexity now in capturing the networking issues, especially when we talk about IoT and smart cities. You will talk about different sources of data coming from different devices, and these devices, they have different types of connectivity. For example, your mobile, your handset, if you have connectivity with what we call it when you open the internet from your hotspot. Yeah, hotspot. When you open the internet from your mobile and you can access through the different devices, that hotspot has certain range. Bluetooth has range different from Wi-Fi, different from other things. And nature of data that had been captured also is not valid for all the time. So this had a timestamp. So based on that, I guess you come up with analysis first, and then you decide which best to what is the best technique to model your knowledge. That's my quick answer for this. But again, this is a very big question that needs to be analyzed further, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, I mean, it's very clear that networks are developing, and we can see it every day in everyday faces where we have the internet, we have the intranet internally, we have the VPNs and other localized networks. So as the Internet of Things and the Internet of People develop, there is subcategories where the communication levels, although they're apparent, they are protected, and there's different layers for it. And regarding to the bandwidth and other things like that, we can see the systems have been developed from the first generations to the fifth generations being implemented nowadays. So the network does expand itself. At this point, we're going to have a quick lunch break. Unfortunately, because we're overrunning with time, we're going to have a 15-minute break, and I think we'll be back about 1:30 to actually listen to Dr. Rabi talking to us about the data sciences and representing elements of the data science. Dr. Alam, do you want to say a word before we go?
Just a question. We had these questions in the social media quite a lot. We actually been asked this question also before in different ways. People ask because they like the sexy word of artificial intelligence. What are the if they want to study artificial intelligence? You both teach artificial intelligence in your universities, and I think maybe that can also allude it to Professor Joseph, the dean from Uganda. Students, I know for data science you need to have a good mathematics background. For data science, what backgrounds, what the students need to have, particularly for young generations? Do they have to come from a science background? Anyone can study artificial intelligence? And also for all the people like us or those who already graduated, if they want to have a course on artificial intelligence, if there is any basic requirement they must, so they can actually listen to a complete course. And perhaps maybe Professor Jody from Uganda, do you teach, not your department in particular, but if it's becoming a regular course, or maybe from Iraq, we can also hear, do you teach data science as a program like here in London or in the UK? So it's really more of, for all of you, really.
Not really as a standalone program. We really go into ICT, and some of those are provided as courses, not as programs. So they are courses of the programs, and the requirement is that somebody must have done some mathematics. But in some other courses, which are like information systems, you do not necessarily have to have done mathematics at A level. So that's the position.
I would say the same thing here as well. AI is a very broad term, so you can have mathematical capabilities, good mathematical capabilities if you'd like to go to data science, more analytical and descriptive. But you can also study AI from ethical perspective as well, which does not require that kind of huge mathematics and huge scientific background. Also, you can study AI from a governmental, from governance point of view, rules and processes that need to be adopted in order to apply AI in societies. And this is also more of business rather than technology. That's interdisciplinary approach, I think, is an advantage for all of us, because we need to talk more about AI, reach a common language where we need to start and investigate these issues in our society, within our society. It's completely, I would say, significantly different from in Uganda, from UK and France and so on. So that's, I say, my answer for this question.
Can I also add, I mean, as I said, I'm a chemical engineer and I do chemical and sustainable engineering, but we've designed the new courses nowadays in terms of the application of engineering, where we incorporated big data and artificial intelligence as an application or a tool to the sciences that we offer. So you're not a specialized person in terms of Dr. Rawad, Dr. Ahmed in the specific area of the knowledge management and the artificial intelligence, but you're specializing in the linguistic and applications of the knowledge that you have, transferable knowledge from one discipline to use machine learning to then predict data, reduce times, meet the needs for the industry 4 and other things like that. So you can look at it from your own applications if you want to go into a master's level, or you can do it from the undergraduate levels onwards.
Yeah, from what I teach at Coventry as well, you need to have basic knowledge in statistic and quantitative approach. It doesn't have to be advanced knowledge, but in order to start with data analytics and big data analytics, you need to have some quantitative approach knowledge and statistics, basic term of statistics. I hope this helped. This in terms of business perspective.
Yes, it does, because this question is being asked because we keep saying to people, this is the new century is knowledge. You have to the key subject now, but it's good. And just in Iraq, do you teach it, Dr. Amir? Because you teach knowledge management. Do you teach artificial intelligence or data science or?
Yes, Professor Alam. We have knowledge management course in management information department. I teach for master students. I teach about 3 decisions or 3 analysis in statistics about AI.
Thank you very much. I mean, now we have a clear understanding of the different elements of it. I'm sure everyone's keen.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.